It's showtime!
Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be talking about some of the Blu-rays in this collection that are my absolute favourites. So let's get right to it. So yeah, as I said, I'm talking about some of my favourites, so we're getting straight into it today. And the first lot of films I want to talk about are the Blair Witch films. Interesting story about this one. I watched this Blair Witch film first. That on first watch, there was some of the weirdest films that I had ever watched, to be honest, because the found footage was very new to me, and just this style of how it was recorded and the sort of, oh, this is a real story, by the way, thing, really, it really intrigued me along the way. But this is just a series of films that I really loved, and it was like a must get. This film, this initial first film, was an absolute must, and to this day, I don't think there's ever going to be found footage films that ever reach the heights of this. Paranormal Activity are very close and very much guilty pleasures, but I think it will always be a contention that these two films are some of the best in the found footage.
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
Next up is an absolute must own in the collection, and that is the Chucky franchise. These films are 100% must own. This is one of those franchises I still think gets a lot right, and we'll get to some of those franchises later as well, that where the films seem to really do well in film to film to film. You know, it has its issues along the way, like City of Chucky, but I don't think that's a bad film. I think it had some bad ideas in the film, but I don't think it's a bad film in general. But yeah, I really do love these films. Like Child's Play 3, for me, is one of the, better in the franchise. It gets a lot of hate in what it wanted to do differently, like, trying to get away from the whole Alex Vincent child Andy sort of aspect, and having him be like sort of teenager, pre-adult sort of thing in the army. And a lot of people I think a lot of people just can't get over that. But for me, I do think that Child's Play 3 is one of the better in the franchise. It's certainly one of my favourites. But don't get me wrong, Child's Play 2 did things that I think really carried over across the franchise. Definitely went into the silly realm, and then went back to its horror roots, and now it's sort of got back to the silly realm with the Chucky seasons that we're currently getting. But for me, like, these films, I think I do really love, and I always come back to them every year, and really do enjoy watching them. These are some of the best. Brad Dourif, who plays Chucky, is just one of the best actors and best voice actors. He does really well in this. And yeah, great set of films. Absolutely love it.
Chucky's gonna be a bro.
It ain't the size that counts, asshole. You've been very naughty, Miss Kettlewell.
Moving on now to another franchise that I do think does things near perfect. I think this one, more so than Chucky, has a lot of less missteps in this franchise, and that is the Evil Dead franchise. I mean, this is just a trilogy, but I have got Rise and I have got that Alvarez version. But these are just some great films. It's a little weird, though, because of the whole producer thing. When you're binge watching them, you're essentially watching the first film twice in two different ways when it comes to Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 does a recap of the first film, but the only difference is he went with just his girlfriend rather than his girlfriend and friends, But these are some great films. For me, personally, Evil Dead 2 is my favourite. However, Alvarez's version does get really close. Alvarez's version has the gore and the seriousness and the horror, and it's fucking mental. Whereas you know, Evil Dead 2 is mental in a really different way. It's not fucking mental, it's just mental. It's just crazy, stupid fun, comedy, but it doesn't take the comedy as a forefront thing like Army of Darkness did. Army of Darkness took the comedy and really ramped it up. It's sort of similar to like Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, and how Ragnarok had the right amount of comedy at the right times, whereas Love and Thunder took it way too far. I think this does it slightly better in the sense, because for starters, Army of Darkness is not the shit show that Love and Thunder is as a film. But for me personally, it's one of the best franchises, and Evil Dead Rise that we got last year was absolutely brilliant. And to find out that they are planning to do a film every 2 to 3 years, and it's just going to be sort of like a new idea, like in a new location and things like that, I really love. You know, I still think Evil Dead Cruise or Evil Dead Cruise Ship, while it sounds a little bit straight to DVD and not like, you know, big screen quality, I don't know, it just, for me personally, that could be the direction that they go with. Clearly I should not be the guy to do the next Evil Dead film, but I love this franchise, and I look forward to seeing what they do next with it. But, you know, Bruce Campbell did a great job in this. I wish he would come back just one more time. The Ash vs Evil Dead series was really good. I wish he would come back in the films, but he won't. Which is fair enough. Fair enough. No one needs to push him into it. I just really wish he would. Next up, and we're sort of disappearing from the horror films for just a little bit, but we're going into the 80s. The 80s? No, we're going into the 80s with an absolute classic, and an absolute classic trilogy of all time, and that is Back to the Future. This is the perfect trilogy right here in my hands. Not the perfect version per se, but this is the best trilogy you can get. Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox at their best. This series and this trilogy should never be touched. These 3 films are classics. Do not ever attempt to remake, reboot the series, or do a continuation, because it will not work. It will not work. What Zemeckis, and I always get his name wrong, so I'm just sticking with Zemeckis. What Zemeckis did is truly, like, tremendous, and I love this trilogy of films. This trilogy of films should not be touched by anyone. Do not do it, because it's a quick crash. To crash, for starters, it will be a crash, but it will be a cash grab, and we don't want a cash grab when it comes to Back to the Future. This is a brilliant trilogy. I absolutely bloody love it.
Reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity.
1.21 gigawatts! 1.21 gigawatts! Great Scott! What the hell is a gigawatt?
Now I want to move on to a franchise that has become really big over the last, 2 decades? And is decades the right word? Yeah, I think decades is the right word. Last 20 odd years. That this franchise has took it to heights that I never thought we'd ever get in the superhero realm of films. I'm of course talking about Joss Whedon's Justice League.
What the fuck are you talking about? We're not doing that.
What?
We're not doing that. Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame.
Oh.
Yeah. Of course it's got to be them. Yeah?
Yeah, okay. That actually does make more sense. Of course we're not talking about Joss Whedon's Justice League fuck off. We are talking about Infinity War and Endgame. Should be that way, really, shouldn't it? But yeah, cringe aside, these films are brilliant. Infinity War is one of the best movies. It's the best Marvel movie for straight up. There's no debate there. But this is just a brilliant movie. I absolutely love Infinity War. And Endgame does even better to a certain extent. I still think that the defeat in Infinity War does beat the defeat of Iron Man in this film. But, you know, the way that they rounded off a bunch of characters in just this one movie, I think just shows the defeat. Not defeat, but the fate that this could go. And I really do love these films. This franchise is one of those ones that, you know, it will never reach the heights of these. No Way Home will come close. No Way Home did come close, but that's based on nostalgia. And I do think Secret Wars will be based on nostalgia. Kang Dynasty, or Dynasty, is it Dynasty? Dynasty. Kang Dynasty, that'll go somewhere. I don't even think it's going to be Kang Dynasty anymore, because how can it be with the whole Jonathan Majors thing? But it will never reach the heights of these two films. I went to see these in cinema multiple times. I think I went to saw this one more just simply because of the spectacle of it all, and Tony Stark's death. It's just such a big thing. My eyes bawled like a nutter, you know. There are moments in films where like a guy can cry, and it's Tony Stark's death and Fast 7, is it? Fast and Furious 7, Paul Walker's last film in the Fast and Furious franchise. I don't know if it was his last ever, but either way, these films are great and I absolutely love them.
Avengers! Assemble.
Next up, we're going to be talking about a film favourite of mine, very old one. And that is An American Werewolf in London. Now, you might wonder, is that the version you got? No, it's not. It's this. Yeah. This is not two versions, by the way, just in case you're thinking it. Now, this is a box set. You get a booklet, which, I mean, look at this thing. Look at that. How can you not love that? You know? The slaughtered lamb bar. Just amazing. Just absolutely amazing. And there's a poster in there that I will eventually get up on the wall at some point to find the location and keep my girlfriend happy at the same time. Not going to be easy, folks. But this is a great movie. You know, this is always one that I'll remember watching with the family. And it's just, I don't know what else I can say about it. That this will always be in my collection, no matter what. I will not be changing this for anything. But this film and this set of films, not set of films, but this film is brilliant. We don't get very many wolf films, but this one is just some of the best. There is another one, Van Helsing, that's, you know, it's not primarily werewolves, it's vampires and sort of thing, but the werewolf sort of thing in that is really interesting. Also, the Underworld series really took the werewolves into an interesting route with the Lycanthrope and the whole Lycans and the rise of it all. Absolutely brilliant, but never will touch the brilliance of An American Werewolf in London.
Excuse me, but what's that star on the wall for?
The next film I'm going to be talking about now is going to have a little bit of, you know, there's a questionable ability of why I've decided to talk about this one. Because I do prefer the book. But we are going back into the horror realm as well with Stephen King. and Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. This is a great movie. Jack Nicholson does absolutely brilliant in this. But for me, the book does it better. I still enjoy this movie and I still love this movie, and this is a movie that when I first watched it, it took me it took me a few tries before I actually really enjoyed the movie. But for me, Stanley Kubrick and what he did with Jack Nicholson in this film is still brilliant. Like I say, the book is better because it dwells more into The Shining. There is definitely a lot more to this film than meets the eye when it comes to like this sort of like, it's not just about a crazy man going after his child and wife. Who, is a very dull boy. But I still really do love this film, and I still think it is brilliant. And it's one of the best adaptations. Obviously, Stephen King tried to adapt it himself. Didn't really go too well. I've only ever watched snippets of that, and it's just, I don't know. He was definitely not one to be a filmmaker, but a writer, true and true. There was so many Stephen King films I could have chosen from. Pet Sematary, It, some classics. But this one is the one I wanted to talk about simply because of the book and the preference over the book. But it's still a great film, and Dr. Sleep is a great little film that goes really well with this. Slow burn, but once it's hot, it's flaming hot. With Dr. Sleep. With this one, through and through, I really do enjoy it. I've still got to get my girlfriend to watch this.
Here's Johnny!
Next three big franchises that I sort of want to talk about, specifically in these films, they're very different sets of horror films. You've got the classic horror slasher, you've got the meta horror that I'm talking about next, and then you've got the horror comedy realm, which, you've got your likes of Zombieland and things like that. I went with Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is an absolutely brilliant movie. I love this film. I've got the limited edition of Hot Fuzz as well as this. Didn't get the World's End in the limited edition cover, which is a shame, but the Cornetto trilogy, this is the strawberry flavour. I noticed, like, when you went on Amazon and you wanted to look at these films, if you look at the trilogy, strawberry, Hot Fuzz is the mint. Hot Fuzz is the original, and then The World's End is the mint. But I absolutely love this film. This film is one of the best horror comedies. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, underrated actors in my opinion. They are small fry, and I don't mean that in any offence. I love them as actors, but you get your Tom Cruises, you get your Johnny Depps, you get your Scarlett Johanssons, you get these big actors, but then you get the smaller actors in Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, and they're brilliant. Brilliant film. Grew up on this. This is like one of those films that I absolutely grew up on and loved all the way through, and will forever be in the collection.
I get higher, baby. I get higher, baby. I get higher, girl.
What's he do? Just say bass or freeze.
So next up, I want to talk about a franchise similar to Chucky and similar to Evil Dead in the sense of how they do in the franchise with some missteps, but a great franchise nonetheless, and that is the Scream franchise. Got all the films over here. But, I still have questions about Scream 4. Like, for me, Scream 4 is the seed of Chucky. And is the sort of army of darkness of the franchise. Scream 3 gets a lot of interesting talk about. Scream 3 is one that I actually really enjoy. Don't get me wrong, I know it's got problems, but for me, Scream 4 is the weakest. But that's not why I want to talk about these films. These films are the meta era of films where it's like, you know, okay, so we're talking about horror films in these films. We're talking about how slasher movies have changed the genre and all these things that like pop up during these films. It's very crazy and creative. And I also love the idea that the killer is always different. I don't think that's something that, you know, you got your Michael Myers across the whole of the Halloween franchise part 1 film. That is still a great film. And you've got, you've got Jason Voorhees, you've got Freddy Krueger, Chucky. They're all staples in their franchises. In this franchise, you get different characters. You've got Roman Pierce, you've got Billy Loomis, you've got Stu Macher. You've got all of these different killers throughout the series that it really does change it up, and I think it really does help this franchise along the way. Imagine if Ghostface was like a Jason Voorhees or a Michael Myers. It would completely change the franchise and it wouldn't work. It really wouldn't work. These films would not work. These films work because they have the mystery aspect to it. I love the Scream franchise, and unfortunately with things going the way they are, we're probably not going to get another one anytime soon, which is a shame. Just pay Neve Campbell what she deserves and just give the actresses, you know, what they said just wasn't that bad. But, you know, that's the only thing we're going to point out here. I'm not political in any way, but great films nonetheless. It's a shame of what's happened because we may never get one. We may never get Scream 7, and if we do, it's going to be possibly the worst in the franchise. But anyhow, I love this franchise, and I hope we can get more great films like these ones.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
Halloween. You know, the one with the guy in the white mask who walks around and stalks babysitters? We're on Elm Street.
Is that the one where the guy had knives for fingers?
Yeah, Freddy Krueger.
Okay, so I want to talk about one last movie in the collection now. This is another one that's from a big horror franchise that along the way has took some liberties, and yet, you know, I still say that Friday the 13th is the one that has the most worst films in the franchise. I really still get a kick out of the bad ones in this franchise, but this is the film that started it all, and it is, of course, Michael Myers himself, Halloween. This franchise alone is brilliant, but this movie, for a lot of people, started it all. Started to start like that slasher craze. Psycho initially was the first, but this started the craze of the slasher movies. You know, it's always been known that Friday the 13th did indeed copy Halloween, not in the sense of the story or anything like that, but they wanted to just, you know, rack up the money from Halloween. They wanted the success that Halloween had, but it came out as a rushed mess, but created this big ass franchise that, for me, only has quite a few films. I think this franchise has more films to enjoy. But this film, you know, it gets talked about a lot and it gets loved a lot. You know, it does get overhyped, but this is still the best horror movie in my collection. This is my favourite, like my all-time favourite movie. All these films that I've talked about today are favourites, but this one is the favourite. It's called Halloween, it's not called the favourite, but it is the favourite in my collection. I love it, and Rob Zombie can suck a big fat turd, because what the fuck did you do with this series of films? just my opinion. I get it if you like those films, and there are parts of the first Rob Zombie film I like, but that second one is a fucking shit show, and I can never get behind it. This is the pinnacle of the franchise. This is the best one. I think this one and the most recent one, Halloween Ends, which is an interesting tour, but Halloween Ends is actually really good. Anybody complaining that in Halloween Ends Michael Myers gets very limited time to shine or on screen, he isn't in this much at all, but it still shows that this one is obviously the superior one of the lot, and it's always going to be my favourite, all-time favourite movie.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
So yeah, that's it. Just a quick little video talking about some of my favourite films in the collection. Hopefully I can get you more style of videos like this out very soon. I just want to say that I have absolutely got a kick out of the last week of how well in fact 2 weeks now, how well my 200 plus Blu-ray collection video has done. Like, I was never expecting it to get that high. You know, at the time I had about 24 followers, 24 subscribers even. And I'm now up to what, 42 subscribers and almost 800 views on that video. Well, over 800 views on that video. So I thank you for support. You know, it's not like, you know, YouTube levels of support, but yeah, it's still is something that feels really true and really good to see. And hopefully I can give you some more videos which brings you that much joy that you want to keep watching and keep subscribing. And please do, you know, wherever it is. It might be over here, it might be over here, it could be up here, you know. Just, you know, you don't have to watch every video I ever do. Look how well my collection video did in comparison to my review of Argyle, you know. You don't have to watch everything that I do, but if ever you see a video that you maybe are interested in, you might as well click that notification bell, just so that you see that, oh, he's got a new video. I'll give it a go. If you don't like it after 5 minutes, that's fine. If you love it and want to watch the whole of it, brilliant. You know, that is up to you. I leave it in your hands. But anyway, I've been Scribbo. This has been Scribbosphere. And hopefully I will get you out a longer video very soon. The 30 films in 30 years is still in the making. And yeah, I've got a lot of lists that I've got some ideas for. There's some films that I haven't got in the collection that I do want that I'll talk about. But that's a later video at a later date. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
What's he doing? Just say